What's up guys, Gherkin here. This is going to be a level 72 Invincible build for Krieg. This is going to build upon the level 61 video that I did, which got a lot of positive feedback, so big thanks for that. It will make more sense if you've already watched that video, but don't worry if you haven't, because this time I'm going to be resetting my skill points and we're going to work from the ground up. So this is a melee build, but instead of focusing on melee damage, instead it works upon colossal damage reduction and long rampages. This means we won't be using Silence the Voices, so instead of hitting ourselves in the face multiple times halfway through a fight, we're going to opt for a reliable melee option, and the extra damage we lose from not taking Silence the Voices is made up for by the fact that you will be taking greatly reduced damage, hence why I call this the Invincible build. You're going to be able to run into huge groups of enemies and go to town on them without fear of dying, and it is a lot of fun to use. Note that this is not a suitable build for raid bosses. Raid boss builds for Krieg are very specific and focus more on the Hellborn tree. This is a build for general combat, but it is by far my most favourite build. We're going to start with the original build. We're going to start with the original build that I had for level 61 and then add our new points on top of it. Although there should only be 11 extra points from the new level cap, I've made a few tweaks to the original build, and that will actually free up another 4, so we're going to have an extra 15 points to spend at the end. But all of that will become clear in a second. Okay, so I'm going to reset my skill points here, and let's see where we're going to put them. Now obviously your first point is going to be to unlock your buzzaxe rampage, and past this your melee build is mostly going to focus around the mania and the bloodlust tree. And although for this build most of our strength comes from the bloodlust tree, there is one skill that is paramount to any good melee build, and that is Release the Beast. Instant recharge on your rampage, melee damage and damage reduction. So we're going to work our way through the mania tree first, and I'm going to start by putting 5 points into Empty the Rage. We're not going to be using Silence the Voices, so extra melee damage from elsewhere is appreciated. Past this you have a bit of a choice, 5 points into Embrace the Pain or Feed the Meat. Personally though, I like Feed the Meat. 50% extra health is significant, and we're going to have some points to put into Embrace the Pain at the end anyway. But we're going to come back to that in a second. First of all, what we can do here is increase our chances of getting out of Fight for Your Life. You're not going to be put into Fight for Your Life very often with this build on, trust me. But in the occasions that we are, we can really help ourselves out here. You're going to put a point into Light the Fuse. This allows us to run around through dynamite instead of shooting from the floor. This is useful if you're playing on your own and with other people, because you can run to a separate safe area and get revived. But we can buff this even further with Strip the Flesh, which is going to up your explosive damage, and that gets added onto those dynamite sticks. It's also going to help out if you're using an Unkempt Herald as your weapon of choice. Most people do these days, so that will help there as well. To finish this off, we're going to put a point in to Redeem the Soul. Not so much for the revive feature, but it gives you an extra 50% extra time in Fight for Your Life. So you're going to get 50% longer to run around through those dynamite sticks. And lastly, we're going to put 5 points into Salt the Wound. Extra melee damage, again, 20 stacks maximum. That's a potential 150% extra melee damage. And those stacks build when you take damage without a shield. This is going to be using the Rough Rider shield, so my shields are always going to be depleted. So any damage I take is going to be building up Salt the Wound stacks, and therefore building up my melee damage. Lastly, we want to unlock Release the Beast, but we don't want to put any points into Silence the Voices. So we're going to go back and we're going to put 3 points into Embrace the Pain. And this is going to give me a permanent fire rate buff again, because my shields are counting as always down, and that's going to be an extra 21% fire rate all the time. That's unlock Release the Beast, so I can put a point into that, and we can move on to the Bloodlust Tree with 41 skill points still remaining. So in your Bloodlust Tree, what we're going to do is start off by putting 5 points into Blood-Filled Guns. This is going to up my magazine size for each stack of Bloodlust. This is good outside of your rampage, obviously. And coupled with your 3 points in Embrace the Pain, this means I'm going to have a very large magazine size along with a buffed fire rate. So you're going to be able to put down quite a significant amount of damage even when I'm outside of Rampage, and it's going to help you build up stacks as well. At 100 stacks, if you're using a double Herald, you'll have a magazine size of about 80, so it's pretty useful. Next of all though, this is where things start getting a bit more important. We're going to put 5 points into Taste of Blood. And at this point I'm going to flip over to my gear, and this is the kind of class mod you want. You want as many points as possible in Taste of Blood and Blood Trance. Blood Trance isn't as important, but Taste of Blood is pretty much the biggie. And this is why, with 11 points in Taste of Blood, I can get 80% damage reduction at 100 stacks. But I can build 48 stacks per kill. So after 2 kills, I'm going to be pretty much at maximum stacks straight away. During my rampage, I'm going to be permanently at 100 stacks with that amount of stacks per kill. And that is going to allow me to carry on with a huge amount of damage reduction. The next thing we want to put a lot of points into is Blood Trance, but to get there we need to put a few more points into this area. And what I would do is recommend you put points into Blood Overdrive. Killing an enemy with bullets increases your melee damage per stack of Bloodlust. So I've put 4 points into this, and now what that means is while I'm in Rampage and I have that constant 100 stacks going, I'm going to be able to put down another 2% per stack. That's another 200% melee damage if I've killed an enemy with bullets beforehand. The last point I'm going to use to unlock Blood Trance is for Buzzaxe Bombardier. I highly recommend you put this in, especially with the 5 points we put in to Strip the Flesh. That's going to be able to do a significant amount of damage now, but also has a nice knockback effect on enemies, which is always useful. And now we're going to put 5 points into Blood Trance, and this allows an extra half a second per stack, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realise if you're at 100 stacks, that's another 50 seconds with these 10 points in. An extra 50 seconds on top of your standard 15, you've now got over a minute of rampage time at 80% damage reduction from this. And we're going to put 5 points into Boiling Blood. We want to unlock Blood Explosion at the end here. This is an amazingly good skill to have against large groups of enemies. It will take the workload off you so much. So we're going to put 5 points into Boiling Blood to stop our stacks from decaying so quickly. And now we can put a point into Bloodlust. Any enemies killed with a melee attack will release an explosive nova. Anyone who's done the bar brawl with Krieg on the Torg DLC will know you can take down an entire floor of people pretty much with one swing of the axe using that skill. And now we have 15 points left over to add on to the Hellborn tree. So with our last 15 points, quite simply what we can do is add a little buff onto our melee, as well as buffing our damage reduction even further. So I'm going to put 5 points into Burn Baby Burn, increased burn damage, and the chance to light yourself on fire. That point is important because next we're going to put 5 points into Numb Nerves. All damage received is reduced while you're on fire, so we're going to get an extra 50% damage reduction from Numbed Nerves. Now we've got 5 points left over, and we're going to add melee attacks have a chance to ignite enemies. So now you're going to have a 50% chance to set enemies on fire while you're hitting them with your axe. You're also going to have a chance to set yourself on fire, which is going to reduce the damage you take. So, now we're going to flip over to the gear briefly. As I said, Rough Rider Shield is going to be the shield of choice for this. 20% damage resistance there. And this is how it compares to the level 61 shield. Obviously still 20% damage resistance. Percentages scale. But what doesn't scale so much is that 81,000 extra health. You're going to need to get yourself a level 72 shield, otherwise you're just shortchanging yourself. Level 72 shield is another 273,000 health, so significantly more. So definitely look into getting yourself an updated Rough Rider if you've been using level 61 up until now. Other than that, that's the class mod once again. Taste of Blood, more than anything you need. Blood Trance, definitely another major one, but not as vital. Next of all, Resistance Relic. Try and get yourself a decent one. They drop from pretty much everywhere. You can get some very good Skin of the Ancients from the loot midgets in the Wildlife Preserve. They'll often drop very good Skin of the Ancients. One thing to keep in mind is Resistance Relics often give you extra shield buffs in lieu of elemental resistances. Obviously you do not need shield buffs with the Rough Rider. Obviously it doesn't have a recharge or a capacity, so ideally try and get yourself 4 elemental resists. One of those should be non-elemental though. One more thing, which is more of a suggestion than anything, if you can get yourself a Stormfront, these are the best thing I have come across in this game for building up Bloodlust stacks. They do so much electric damage at once, you can build up about 40 stacks per grenade. And if you throw one of these at one enemy and you're shooting another one, you're going to get up to maximum stacks really quickly. So if you can get your hands on a Stormfront, any level, doesn't really matter. I'm using a level 55 one at level 72. Not even bothering using it for damage, just to build up stacks really quickly. Those are really useful. But anyway, with all of these on, the Rough Rider, Resistance Relic, and all the skills, at maximum stacks, I will be at 225% damage reduction. And obviously that doesn't mean I'm going to be taking no damage at all. The maths just doesn't work out that way in Borderlands. It depends when that percentage is kind of added onto the calculations. But I will be taking very, very little of all the incoming damage. And if you don't believe me, here's some more footage of this build in action. This is going to be me running through the Bloodshot Stronghold, taking very, very little damage. You're going to be able to just run through enemies and very casually kind of just slot them while shaking off huge amounts of incoming fire. And obviously each time you kill an enemy, you get all your health back anyway, and it's going to put them back at square one. So you're going to be able to run through areas like this with incredible ease. And if you downloaded KRIEG with the thoughts of kind of going on these mad axe rampages, and actually found the skill tree didn't really make much sense, and Silence the Voices was screwing you over more than it was helping you, then this build is definitely for you, because that's exactly the experience I had. And since putting this on, it's been so much fun, and it's just absolutely fantastic for running through areas like this. Anyway, definitely give it a try. Feedback is always appreciated. I hope this has been useful in some way. I've been Gherkin, and I will see you next time.